Hello, dear students. I welcome you all in the pharmacology practical. So, myself, Dr. Tushar Baheti, I am going to cover today the practical on ADR reporting and pharmacovigilance. We have already covered this in the lectures, so you may have an idea about this topic. What we are going to cover in this lecture, first we will learn about certain facts in the ADR, and then we will solve the exercises which are given in your practical or record book, okay, on ADR. Then we will learn about the pharmacovigilance and ADR reporting form, and then there are the two examples or exercises related to the ADR reporting form. So we will complete those exercises. So now first, adverse drug reaction. Okay, so ADR is defined as any noxious change which is suspected to be due to a drug. Okay, so there is only suspicion that this ADR or this particular change in the patient condition is because of a drug. We are not sure about it. Okay, occurs at a doses normally used in a man. Why this statement is there? Because sometimes if we are going to use very high doses or excessive doses, then certainly that will have an ill effect or bad effect. But when we are using normal therapeutic doses and still any bad effect is there, then that is mostly labeled under the ADR. Requires the treatment or decrease in the dose. Now for that particular adverse effect, we require certain treatment or decrease in the dose of that drug which may be responsible for causing that ADR, or indicates the caution in the future use of the same drug. If particularly the allergic reactions are there, then we should avoid giving that drug in a same patient for the second time. Okay, because there are very high chances of drug allergy, since the antibodies may be formed due to in that patient to that particular drug. So this is a definition of ADR, adverse drug reaction. Okay, now there is another terminology, adverse drug event. Okay, so adverse drug event, and what is the difference between adverse drug reaction? So we have seen the ADR. Now we will see what is the adverse drug event. So adverse drug event is a broad term, means any untoward medical occurrence that may present during treatment with a medicine. Okay, any type of adverse reaction or any symptoms which may not be explained by the current disease, that may be labeled under the adverse drug event, but which does not necessarily have causal relationship with the treatment. Means suppose if you are giving the atropine to some patient because of any bradycardia or for purpose of mydriasis or any other purpose, and if that patient develops sneezing, or that patient develop the cough which is totally unexplained on the basis of atropine, and neither related to the uh, his current disease, so that may be labeled as an adverse drug event. Okay, so adverse drug event is a broad term, and when we are doing the causality assessment, there is a one terminology in the pharmacovigilance, that is a causality assessment, that we are finding out the cause of this particular noxious change or any adverse effect. So when we are doing the causality assessment, if it is related to the drug, then and then only we can label it as an adverse drug reaction. Otherwise we will label it as an adverse drug event on a safer side. Okay, now this we have also seen in the lectures that the ADRs are classified into the type A and type B. Okay, type A means augmented or predictable adverse drug reaction. Type B means bizarre, vichitra, or unpredictable adverse reaction. And there are certain differences. You can see predictability. Yes, type A are highly predictable because they are related to the pharmacological action of a drug, while type B, especially allergy and idiosyncrasy type of reaction, they are unpredictable. These are type A are dose dependent. Once you increase the dose, there are more chances of type A ADR. But this type B ADR, they are not related to the dose. If they has to happen, they can happen even at a small, even with a low dose or small dose. And if they don't has to happen, they will not happen with a high dose also in some individuals. Obviously, the incidence of type A is high as compared to the type B. Mortality but is very low in type A, that is more in the type B. Okay. Most of the time in the type A, the treatment is we have how just adjust the dose, either decrease the dose or withdraw the drug. But most of the time by adjusting or decreasing the dose, the ADR can subside. But in type B, we have to withdraw the drug most of the time or stop the drug. Type A, they are the etiology-wise extension of pharmacological effect of a drug, while type B are some immunological or genetic basis is there, and they are not related to the pharmacological action of a drug. Okay. For example, the bradycardia with beta blockers. We know that beta blockers, they are going to decrease the heart rate and they will cause the bradycardia. So this is a known and predictable reaction. Okay, and that is because of extension of pharmacological action of beta blocker because of decreasing the heart rate. But malignant hyperthermia, which may occur with halothane, which is one of the type of the general anesthetic, this is totally unexplainable on the basis of its general anesthetic property, and this is one of the idiosyncrasy reactions. So this is the difference between type A and type B. Now the certain terminology which are important. Idiosyncrasy. So idiosyncrasy means genetically determine abnormal reactivity to the chemical or either to the drug. Here, drug interacts with some unique feature of an individual which are not found in majority of the subject and produces the uncharacteristic reaction. And this idiosyncrasy is mostly restricted to individuals with a particular genotype. Okay, so they will happen only in a particular patient having that particular genotype and will not happen in another patient. There are certain examples like barbiturate which can cause the excitement and mental confusion in some individuals. Actually, barbiturates are the sedative hypnotic type of the drug and they should cause the CNS depression. But on contrast, in some individuals, they can cause the excitement and mental confusion. So this can be a idiosyncratic type of reaction. A second example can be given a chloramphenicol, which is one of the antibiotic or antimicrobial drug. It produces non-dose related serious aplastic anemia in rare individuals, even with a few or single doses. So chloramphenicol produces the aplastic anemia as an adverse effect, but if in the, that will produce only in certain patient, and that too at a very single doses or few doses. If it has to do the aplastic anemia, actually it should do in a prolonged period or in a high doses, but even with a one or few doses it may produce aplastic anemia. So this can be the example of idiosyncratic reaction. Now coming to the another terminology in the ADR is a teratogenicity, and I think most of you are aware of this. The word teratogenicity is derived from the Greek word that is a teratos, meaning the monster. Okay, so what is a teratogenicity? It refers the capacity of a drug to cause fetal abnormalities when administered to the pregnant woman. So whenever we are administering the drugs to the pregnant woman, either in the first, second or third trimester, and if any adverse effect happens in the fetus because of that drug, then we are going to label that adverse drug reaction as a teratogenicity. And we are very well aware of the historical example of thalidomide, which was one of the antiemetic and also type of the sedative drug, which was given in the pregnant females who are admitted in the London hospitals. And most of the cases which happen because of this thalidomide, that happens between the 1958 to 61. What particular ADR happens because of thalidomide in the fetus, that thousands of the babies, they are born with a phocomelia. Okay, this is a particular ADR where the limbs are not fully developed, especially the upper and lower limbs, and they are called as a seal like limbs. So the retrospective study, the physician observed that what was given commonly given to all these patients, and they found out that most of these pregnant women were prescribed with a thalidomide, and then they came to know that yes, thalidomide is responsible for phocomelia, and after that the thalidomide was withdrawn from the market. But again the thalidomide has been reintroduced in the some recent years, but not because of its sedative or analgesic antiemetic property, but because of its anti-angiogenesis property, because of which it is useful in some type of the cancers, and also in the type 2 lepra reaction, that is the erythema nodosum leprosum, but that is obviously the another story. So drugs can get affect the fetus at the 3 stages mainly, from fertilization till the implantation of the fetus in the uterus, that is from 0 to 17 days. Then organogenesis, when the various organs are going to be developed, and this is between the 18 to 55 days, and this is a very critical period. Okay, if we are going to give the drug in this period, then this is a very dangerous or most vulnerable period, where organ deformities or another type of the deformities can happen in the fetus. Okay, and later on growth and development can be affected by the drug from the 56 days onward. So if you observe, then mostly organogenesis, which is we are calling at the vulnerable period, that happens in the first trimester. That's why it is better to avoid all kind of the drug unless necessary during the first 3 months of the pregnancy. If it is absolutely necessary, obviously we have to give the drug if it is a life saving or the unbearable pain or unbearable any type of the disease. Okay, otherwise we should try to avoid the drugs in the first 3 months of the pregnancy. Now coming to the various examples or exercises which are given in your record book. Okay, so though there are lot of examples and lot of drugs which can cause this particular areas, for the sake of maintaining the uniformity in your journals, I am going to take only the 4 examples or whatever examples have been asked to you. Okay, so first exercise 1, enumerate 4 examples of teratogenic effect of a drug. Okay, so the drugs causing the teratogenicity, there is a long list of these drugs, uh, but just I already told you that you have to write these in the journals. You can take the screenshot or the snapshot of this, and you have to write in your record book, and once you written, then that is going to be evaluated by your respective mentors. So thalidomide, it is responsible for causing the phocomelia, as we have already discussed in the earlier slides. Then methotrexate, this is an anti-cancer drug and also useful in rheumatoid arthritis. It can cause various type of ADR, but in the fetus it may be responsible for causing the cleft palate. Okay, the palate is not fully developed and there may be some gaps in the developing the palate, that is called cleft palate. Then a popular example is a tetracycline, which is obviously antibiotic or antimicrobial, and it can affect the teeth and the bones. So it might be responsible for discolored and deformed teeth in the fetus as well as in the children, maybe at a later stage. And phenytoin, which is an anti-epileptic drug, it may cause the fetal hydantoin syndrome. What is this fetal hydantoin syndrome? There may be manifestations like hypoplastic phalanges, means the fingers and the toes, they are not small in the size. Then the cleft palate, microcephaly, that is a small size of the head. Okay, so these are the certain examples of the teratogenic effect of a drug. Exercise 2, enumerate 4 examples of idiosyncratic reaction. We have already seen idiosyncrasy is a genetically determined abnormal reactivity to the chemical. So these are certain examples for you. Malignant hyperthermia means there is a sudden or dangerous rise in the body temperature. Mostly it is more than 105 or almost to the 105 degree Fahrenheit, and it may be caused by the drugs like anesthetics, halothane, muscle relaxants like succinylcholine, or antipsychotic drug like haloperidol and chlorpromazine. But when it is caused by antipsychotic drug rather than malignant hyperthermia, we are using the term neuroleptic malignant syndrome. Okay, but the manifestations are the same: hyperthermia or sudden excessive rise in the body temperature, and that may be associated with the excessive muscular rigidity. Okay, so this is one of the example. Second is aplastic anemia, decrease in the count of most of the cells, RBC, WBC, and the platelets, but especially the granulocytes, and that may happen with a single dose of chloramphenicol. So this is the example of idiosyncratic reaction. Barbiturates, I have already explained that rather than causing the CNS depression and sedation, they may cause excitement and mental confusion in some individuals. So this is the example of idiosyncrasy. Thiazide diuretics, they may cause the erectile impotence in the some patient, which is totally unrelated to its diuretic activity. Exercise 3 is enumerate 4 drugs which are causing the hepatotoxicity. So there are a lot of drugs which can cause the hepatotoxicity or toxicity of the liver, especially anti-tubercular drug, first line anti-tubercular drug I have mentioned here. They are more probably causing the hepatotoxicity, just like the isoniazid, rifampicin and pyrazinamide. All these three are anti-tubercular drug from the first line, and halothane type of the drug which is a general anesthetic. Okay. Then exercise 4, enumerate 4 drugs causing the nephrotoxicity, that is the kidney toxicity. So the drugs like aminoglycosides, which you may learn in the chemotherapy, like streptomycin, gentamicin, they may cause the nephrotoxicity. Apart from the nephrotoxicity, the peculiar adverse effect of this streptomycin and gentamicin are ototoxicity and the neuromuscular blockade. Then amphotericin B, this is the drug which you are going to heard recently in the corona pandemic, and we have observed that mucormycosis, which is one of the deadliest post-COVID complication and observed in a lot of the patient nowadays. For that, antifungal drug amphotericin B is prescribed. Okay, especially liposomal amphotericin B, which is a novel drug delivery approach. But amphotericin B is one of the highly toxic drug and it may cause the nephrotoxicity. So one should be precautious while giving the amphotericin B. Cisplatin, this is one of the anti-cancer drug which is highly emetogenic, very high chances of causing vomiting, and apart from that it is also causing the nephrotoxicity or kidney toxicity. Cyclosporin, this is one of the immunosuppressant which is given mostly in the patient of organ transplantation to prevent the graft rejection reaction. It may cause the nephrotoxicity. So these are the examples of the drugs which may cause nephrotoxicity. Then the exercise 5, enumerate 4 drugs which may cause the bone marrow depression or suppression. There are the three drugs which are starting from the C, and you can easily remember them. First is the chloramphenicol. We already learned that it may cause the bone marrow depression and even the aplastic anemia. Carbamazepine, which is an anti-epileptic drug, and it may cause the bone marrow depression. Carbimazole, this is anti-thyroid drug and it may cause the bone marrow depression as well as agranulocytosis type of the feature. Okay. Zidovudine, which is an anti-HIV drug and very likely to cause bone marrow depression as well as megaloblastic anemia. Okay, so these are the examples which you may write in your record book of the drugs causing the bone marrow suppression or depression. Then exercise 6, this is actually you can say a case related discussion or the case based learning. Okay, CBL, which is one of the novel approach in your CBME curriculum, competency based medical education curriculum. Okay, so first we will see this information which is given or case history which is given for that patient, and there are 3 questions which are asked, so we will solve them one by one. So 22-year-old woman presented with history of one generalized tonic-clonic seizure. So there is only one seizure. When you are learning the CNS, then you will come to know that seizures are mostly classified as a generalized tonic-clonic and absent seizure. There are certain other types, but these are the main 2 types: generalized tonic-clonic and absent seizure. So in this woman, there is a one generalized tonic-clonic seizure. There was no family history of epilepsy. There was also no history of any birth injury, and the seizure was not associated with fever. On examination, there was no neurological abnormality. The EEG waves was suggestive of primary generalized seizure. Okay, and because of this, the woman was started on phenytoin therapy, or one of the anti-epileptic drug which is preferred in a patient of generalized tonic-clonic seizure. The dose of phenytoin is given as 100 mg 3 times daily. Okay, means total 300 mg dose, and was asked to follow up 2 weeks later or after 15 days and keep a record of number of seizure. Okay, so doctor has asked the woman to record if any seizures still occurring after giving the phenytoin therapy. That is called seizure diary. A patient himself should record in that diary that after taking the drug, though I am having this much amount of the or this much frequency of the seizure. Okay. Now this is a history. Okay, a patient of generalized tonic and prescribe the phenytoin 100 milligram TDS. Okay, no family history, no birth injury, no fever. This is to rule out any other causes of the epilepsy. So this is purely a case of epilepsy where no other associated cause is there. Now first question is, she comes back with a complaints of 4 seizures in the past fortnight. How will you proceed? So what is the thing here? In the last 15 days, the woman still have 4 seizures even after giving the phenytoin therapy. Then how will you proceed? Now what is the likely cause of the seizures even after giving phenytoin therapy? Okay. So what is answer? Probable answer is this. Before going to the answer, phenytoin is an anti-epileptic drug, and it is a drug having a narrow therapeutic window. Okay, what is therapeutic window? When we are going to measure the concentration of phenytoin in the plasma, the phenytoin optimum effect or maximum effect of phenytoin is observed if the plasma concentration is between 10 to 20 microgram per ml. Okay, below 10 microgram per ml, phenytoin effects are suboptimal, means there may not be adequate prevention of seizure or control of seizure if the concentration is below 10 microgram per ml. While above 20 microgram per ml, the phenytoin side effects will start appearing and even the toxicity symptoms. Okay, so phenytoin is one of the drug which is responsible for causing the toxicity, like at a therapeutic level, means between 10 to 20 it may cause gum hypertrophy, hirsutism, megaloblastic anemia, or problems with vitamin D and calcium metabolism. But at a higher level, that is above 20 microgram per ml, it may cause the toxicity symptoms, especially cerebellar and vestibular toxicity, where it may be responsible for ataxia, nystagmus, vertigo, diplopia. Now, here the patient is complaining of seizures even after giving the phenytoin. Means most probably we have given the inadequate doses because of which the concentration is below 10 microgram per ml. So, occurrence of seizure may be due to inadequate doses of phenytoin. So we will do the therapeutic drug monitoring. Okay, that is a TDM. This you all learn in the general pharmacology. What we are going to do in the therapeutic drug monitoring, after giving the phenytoin, after some time interval, we are going to take the blood sample of the patient and we are going to measure the concentration of phenytoin by HPLC, UPLC, or another mass spectrophotometry like methods, that what is the concentration of phenytoin in the blood. Okay, so we will do the therapeutic drug monitoring for phenytoin blood levels, as phenytoin exhibits therapeutic window phenomenon and optimal effects are exerted between the therapeutic concentration range of 10 to 20 microgram per ml. So in this patient, maybe the dose which we are giving 100 milligram thrice daily is inadequate, because of which the concentration is below the 10 microgram and because of which the patient is complaining of the 4 seizures in the past fortnight. So in this type of the patient, we have to increase the dose of phenytoin. The dose of phenytoin has to be increased by 50 milligram per week till the total control of seizures was obtained. Okay, so 50 milligram per week is increment is necessary. We cannot increase beyond that, means in a per week. Okay, otherwise toxicity symptoms may appear. Okay, and most of the time the maximum dose is the 400 milligram BD. Yes, one thing just want to clarify, that maximum dose of phenytoin is the 400 milligram per day, okay, rather than BD. Now the second question is, her serum phenytoin levels are 8 microgram per ml. What will your advice be? Okay, so here desired therapeutic effect of phenytoin can be achieved with a plasma phenytoin concentration above the 10 microgram per ml and below the 20 microgram per ml. Her plasma concentration is at a subtherapeutic level. Henceforth, dose of the phenytoin has to be increased so as to achieve the desired therapeutic effect with increment of 50 milligram per day over the 1 week interval. So this we have discussed in the previous question also. that we have to increase the dose of phenytoin, and what we have thought in the previous question, that we have to do the therapeutic drug monitoring. So here we have done the therapeutic drug monitoring. Here the concentration is 8, that is below the 10, because of which there is inadequate control, and that's why we have to increase the dose of phenytoin. Next, third question is, 2 weeks later, she now comes with a giddiness and unsteady gait. Her plasma phenytoin levels are 24 microgram per ml. What will you do now? Okay. So once again, the desired therapeutic effect of phenytoin can be achieved with a plasma phenytoin concentration above 10 and below 20. When it exceeds the 20, the adverse effects of phenytoin are seen, like giddiness, unsteady gait or ataxia, and that is due to the cerebellar and vestibular toxicity. In this case, the patient plasma concentration is 24 microgram per ml. Obviously, that is above the 20 microgram per ml, and these side effects are occurring because of the phenytoin cerebellar and vestibular toxicity. So in this type of the patient, what we have to do now, we will decrease the dose of phenytoin therapy till the plasma concentration comes below the 20 microgram per ml. Okay, so we have to decrease the dose of the phenytoin, and we have to do again therapeutic drug monitoring to measure the concentration. If it is less than 20, then the further chances of toxicity are not there. And for this ataxia and the giddiness type of the symptoms, if they are not stopped, then we probably have to seek the opinion of the neurologist. Okay. Now the next exercise is, a 45-year-old woman for rheumatoid arthritis complains of colicky pain in the abdomen, constipation, anorexia, weakness, and the wrist drop. On examination, bluish discoloration of the gums was observed. The history and the clinical examination was suggestive of lead poisoning. What further history would you like to elicit? Okay. So this is a patient of rheumatoid arthritis, and she now has developed the lead poisoning, which is obviously from the this examination and the symptoms. So what further history would you like to elicit is asked as a question. Okay, and so as such, there is a no direct link between the rheumatoid arthritis and the lead poisoning. So this probably lead poisoning this woman has developed because of some occupation related things, and that's why we are going in that direction. So from above information and the complaints, it is clear that this is a case of chronic lead poisoning, and since such a type of the lead poisoning in common in occupational hazard, the history regarding the occupation and the duration of occupation should be elicited. Most of the times the women or the workers who are working in the paint industry or certain industry where the exposure to the lead is there, so this type of the lead poisoning can happen because of the long term absorption of the lead. Okay, so only the thing is which we can do in this case, we have to ask the history, and we have to then treat the patient up for the lead poisoning. Now the exercise 8. So there are the multiple photographs which we are also keeping for your spots during the practical examination. So I will show you the photograph, and what is asked you in that spot, that identify this ADR and name the possible drugs which are responsible for causing that ADR. So first we will discuss what is this ADR, and then the drugs causing that ADR. So this is the photograph of the first ADR. So any clue? Yes, this is a lipodystrophy. Okay. So this ADR is a lipodystrophy which possibly occurs due to subcutaneous repeated injection with the insulin at the same site, generally with the older beef or pork insulin preparation. See, once you learn the diabetes, you can see there are the insulin which is obtained from the beef or the pork earlier, but nowadays we are preparing the human insulin in the recombinant, with the help of recombinant DNA technology in the laboratory. So the chances of lipodystrophy are less. Why lipodystrophy is occurring? Because of the lipolytic property of the insulin. Okay. So this is a lipodystrophy which is occurring because of the insulin preparations, especially with the beef and pork. This is rare nowadays due to the availability of the newer human insulin preparations which are prepared by recombinant DNA technology. What you have to do if this type of the ADR occurs, this can be avoided by changing the site of the subcutaneous injection. So rather than giving the subcutaneous injection of insulin repeatedly at the same site, here they have given on the abdomen, so we can rotate the site either on the chest or the back or the thighs and the so on. So we can change the site of application of the subcutaneous injection every time. So this type of the ADR are less, and once nowadays we are using the human insulin, again it is very less incidence of this type of ADR. Now coming to the second ADR, pitting edema over the ankle or ankle edema, which you can see clearly over the ankle and the legs. Okay, so this is a pitting edema because there is a depression when we are pressing with the thumb, and this type of the pitting edema occurs mainly to the drugs like dihydropyridine type of calcium channel blockers, okay, which we are going to use in hypertension, angina or CHF, or even type of the some type of the arrhythmia, especially with nifedipine. So this is a very short and rapid acting drug among the dihydropyridine, and this nifedipine may cause this pitting edema because of its vasodilatory side effects. Okay, second drug which may be implicated in the ankle edema or pitting edema is amantadine. Amantadine is actually an antiviral drug which was used for the prophylaxis against the influenza A2, but it is also useful in Parkinsonism, and it may cause this type of the side effect, and it is also called as a livedo reticularis, where there may be some bluish discoloration, but this is classically an ankle edema rather than livedo reticularis. Okay, third is a Cushing syndrome. Okay, so the Cushing syndrome here it occurs because of the excessive production of the you can say glucocorticoid or mineralocorticoid, or either because of some drugs. So drugs like corticosteroids, especially the prednisolone, when given in a high doses for prolonged period, the Cushing syndrome or Cushing habitus picture is observed. What happens in that? There is a deposition of the fat over the central body area, like the face, which is called as a moon face, then on the shoulder, which is called as a buffalo hump, okay, fish like mouth, and there is a relative thinning of the extremities, especially our hands and the legs. The fat is withdrawn from the hands and the legs, and it is deposited over the abdomen, over the face. Okay, so there may be the abdominal obesity, and there may be some petechiae or the purpurae because of the problems with the corticosteroids during the skin healing process, or there may be some petechiae and purpurae. So this is a clearly case of the Cushing syndrome, and drugs causing are the corticosteroid like the prednisolone. Okay. Next photograph is of the ADR, that is you can see Stevens-Johnson syndrome, or it may be also called as a toxic epidermal necrolysis. Okay, so this can be a dangerous one, and the drugs which are responsible are drugs like sulfonamides, valproic acid, which is anti-epileptic drug, cephalosporins, allopurinol, a drug which is useful in the patients of the gout, okay, to decrease the uric acid, and tetracyclines type of the drug. Next is a very characteristic, you can see gum hypertrophy, or it is also called as a gingival hyperplasia. The drugs which may be responsible for this is the phenytoin. Why the phenytoin causes the gum hypertrophy is asked maybe in the viva, because of the overgrowth of the gingival collagen fibers. Okay, and how you can prevent this? We have to just ask the patient to maintain the good oral hygiene. Okay. Apart from the phenytoin, lamotrigine, which is also anti-epileptic drug, may cause this gum hypertrophy. Cyclosporin and sirolimus, these are the immunosuppressants which may cause this type of the gum hypertrophy or gingival hyperplasia like a picture. Then a characteristic, another area is the hirsutism, that is a development of the hairs, especially on the face like the mustache or the bird in the females. Okay, so male like development of the hairs in the females, it again occurs because of the phenytoin. It may occur because of the minoxidil, which is actually anti-hypertensive drug, but because of the hair follicle development, it is also useful for the treatment of alopecia in the males. But in the females, it may cause the hirsutism type of the picture. Cyclosporin, apart from gum hypertrophy, this phenytoin and cyclosporin both are implicated in the hirsutism. Okay, and obviously anabolic steroids like the testosterone may cause because the male also have the hair growth on the face due to the testosterone factor. So in the females, if we are giving the anabolic steroids, it may cause the hirsutism type picture. Next area is the gynecomastia. So you can see development of the breast in the male like a female. So the drugs which may be responsible for gynecomastia are digitalis, spironolactone. Both are useful in the congestive heart failure. Ketoconazole, which is antifungal drug, and cimetidine, which is a histamine H2 receptor blocker, useful in the treatment of peptic ulcer or acidity. Yes, so these are the 7 exercises which are there for the ADR. Now the next point is a pharmacovigilance and ADR reporting. Okay, so vigilance means observation, pharmacon means the drug. So we are going to observe the side effects of the drug. So why the need of the pharmacovigilance has been generated? Okay, this is another new branch of the pharmacology nowadays, you can say. A preclinical or animal studies are often not enough to predict the adverse drug reaction in the human beings. Okay, so before a drug is marketed, obviously we are going to do the animal studies in the rats or the rabbits or the mouse. In that we mostly don't find some rare adverse drug reaction. Even the pre-marketing clinical studies, means phase 0 and phase 1 to 3, sometimes fail to predict the more rare adverse effect like aplastic anemia, which may be caused by clozapine type of antipsychotic, and hence the post-marketing ADR monitoring is needed, and that's why there is a need of pharmacovigilance. Okay, according to the WHO, what is the definition of PV or pharmacovigilance is science and activities relating to the detection, assessment, understanding and prevention, that is called DAUP, detection of ADR, then assessment of ADR whether it is because of the drug or not, understanding why this ADR might have been happen, and then to prevent the adverse effects in the future in the same patient or in the another patient or any other drug related problem. So this is a very important branch of pharmacovigilance, and our college is one of the established ADR monitoring center or AMC under the pharmacovigilance program of India. Okay, where we are going to report the ADR. So most of the time from the clinical faculty we receive the ADRs that we fill in one of the software which is called as a VisiFlow, and then we report that to the National Coordination Center for Pharmacovigilance Program of India, which is the IPC Ghaziabad, Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, Ghaziabad. In the next slide. Yes, from this slide it is obvious to you that pharmacovigilance program of India is one of the national program we are running as in a country. So National Pharmacovigilance Program of India headquarter is in the CDSCO, that is a Central Drug Standard Control Organization, which is under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, MOHFW, under Government of India. Then a National Pharmacovigilance Program Coordination Center is IPC Ghaziabad, which is in the Uttar Pradesh, UP, near the Delhi, Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission. This is a national center where most of the centers from the country are reporting, and these are the ADR monitoring center which are under this IPC Ghaziabad, and one of the ADR monitoring center is our Rural Medical College, Loni. Since there are various zonal and sub-zonal centers at east, west, and you can say south and north level. So in the north level, Ghaziabad and Chandigarh; in the south, Chennai, Hyderabad, Bangalore; in the east, Kolkata; and in the west, Mumbai and Ahmedabad. Okay. Then apart from these medical colleges where most of these ADR monitoring center or AMCs are located, the pharma industry, it is compulsory for the pharma industry for first 4 years, once the new drug is approved after the phase 3 approval, okay, to report the any adverse drug reactions to the DCGI, that is the Drug Controller General of India. Okay. So ADR monitoring center may be MC approved or nowadays NMC approved medical colleges and hospital, any private hospital, public health program or autonomous institute like ICMR. Then in the pharmacovigilance program of India, there are certain panels at the IPC Ghaziabad, which is a national center, signal review panel, core training panel, quality review panel. Okay, so these are responsible for various activities under the pharmacovigilance like core training. So they are involved in the training the healthcare individuals how to identify ADR, how to report the ADR. Quality review panel, once who are continuously observing the quality of this pharmacovigilance program of India. Signal review panel, there is a one word signal. Okay, so whenever there are lot of ADRs which are observed to particular drug, then a signal is generated, means there is something fishy for that particular drug, that this particular ADR is repeatedly caused by that drug. Then there is a signal review panel may give the recommendations to the DCGI or CDSCO for withdrawal or the ban on that drug, or any particular precaution or the warning which should be there on the label of that drug. Okay, so signal review panel. Then there is a steering committee, strategic advisory committee. There are various methods of ADR reporting. Okay, there is a one ADR reporting form which we are going to learn in the coming slides, which is given by National Pharmacovigilance Program of India. For the healthcare, there are two types of form. One is for healthcare professionals and one is for the consumers or for the patient. ADR reporting form for patients use. Now this is available in the most of the local languages. So some of the patients, they can directly report the ADR to the national center or to the toll-free number, which we will learn in the coming slides. So this form may be available in the various local languages like Marathi, Hindi, Gujarati, Bengali for the patients, and for the healthcare professionals it is available most of the times in the English. There is ADR reporting form for CIOMS, that is a Council for International Organization of Medical Sciences. In the UK, there is a yellow card system for reporting the ADR. In the USA, there is a MedWatch for reporting the ADR. In the Australia, there is a blue card, and there is a spontaneous reporting. Okay, that is a voluntary reporting for most of the time. So there is a software called VisiFlow, where the Indian medical colleges or ADR monitoring center, they are submitting the ADR reporting form data in the software VisiFlow. At a global level, the global center for pharmacovigilance is in the Sweden, and the name of that center is Uppsala Monitoring Center or UMC. So that global WHO or international database is called as a VisiBase. Okay, Indian database is called VisiFlow, international database is called as a VisiBase. There are various another softwares for ADR reporting the ADR, especially the private companies like the TCS or the others which are doing the pharmacovigilance activities. They have their own software. What are the activities involved in the pharmacovigilance? First is a post-marketing surveillance, that is mostly called as a phase 4. Okay, PMS, post-marketing surveillance, and other methods of ADR reporting. Then dissemination of ADR data through the drug alerts or medical letters or advisories sent to the doctors by pharmaceuticals and regulatory agencies. So IPC Ghaziabad, they are continuously sending the drug alert or medical letters to the AMC and also to the pharmaceutical companies once they have a particular evidence about the particular drug causing the ADR. For example, there are the certain drugs which have been banned because of the pharmacovigilance activity, like the rofecoxib and valdecoxib, because of the increased incidence of myocardial infarction or thrombosis. So this is the advantage of this pharmacovigilance, that some drugs which are having a particular health hazard, they may be banned or the withdraw from the market. Okay. Changes in the labeling of the medicine. Sometimes there is a restrictions in the use. Just like in the corona pandemics, you are going to observe that remdesivir is not going to use in each and every patient. There are certain guidelines which are given by our regulatory authority, and there is a role of pharmacovigilance professionals, especially MD pharmacology and other peoples, for giving these guidelines. Okay, or some statutory warning or precautions or even withdrawal of the drug. For example, nimesulide, that drug should not be given in the children less than 12 years of age, because it may cause the hepatotoxicity and nephrotoxicity. This is the you can say data which came because of the ADR reporting and pharmacovigilance. That's why ADR reporting is very much important. Now the ADR reporting form. So this form is also given in your journal, and it is also available on the IPC site. So we will see what are the key information required in this form. So first there is a patient information. Okay, this is called as a suspected adverse drug reaction reporting form, and this is for the voluntary reporting of adverse drug reaction by healthcare professionals. So this is a voluntary till date. There is no compulsion for healthcare reporting the ADR on a healthcare professionals, but certainly this is our moral and ethical duty to report any areas which may be observed by healthcare professionals. Okay, so what are the headings or what are the columns in this form? First is a patient information, where there is a first is a patient initials. Now patient initials, we don't have to put the name of the patient, just like, okay, so for example, my name is Tushar Baheti, I will only put TB, or for example, if you don't know the name of the patient, you can put ABC or XYZ. This is because we don't want to reveal the identity of the patient, because this is a legal document. Sorry, this is a strictly confidential thing, and we don't want to disclose that the health, either the identity of the patient as well as identity of the reporter. Okay, in India and most of the other countries also, there is a very less awareness about the ADR reporting. Why? It is because of the negligent approach of the healthcare professionals and other paramedical personnel. And another thing is that if this ADR or side effect is happening because of the drug, the physician may believe that it is because of my mistake or my fault, and then he don't came forward for reporting the ADR. That's why it is clearly written in the red. You can see your confidentiality, that patient identity is held in a strict confidence and protected to the fullest extent. Submission of the report does not constitute an admission that medical personnel or manufacturer or the product caused or contributed to the reaction. So submission of ADR report does not have any legal implication on the report. You don't have to be or any physician is not punishable in a court of law just because he is reporting the ADR. So this is a very important thing that should be kept in the mind by the medical students, medical professionals, that there is no legal implication of this document. This is just we are going to do for the safety of the patient and for creating our own database, that this particular drug may cause this type of the ADR. Okay. So what are the heading? Patient information, suspected adverse reaction, B, C, suspected medication, and D, reported detail. Okay. So first we will see A, patient information, patient initials. We have seen that. Age at the time of the event or a date of birth. Okay. Whichever is available, you can put that, mostly in the years or in the months in case of the children. Third is the gender, male, female or other. So you have to just tick the appropriate gender. Fourth is a weight, so you have to put the weight of the patient in the kilogram. Then the next column is the suspected adverse reaction. Now you have to describe what a particular ADR has been happened. What exactly has happened to the patient. The fifth one is the event or reaction start date. At which date this particular ADR happens. You have to put that date in the DD, MM, YYY category. Okay, like suppose 24 5 24 05 2021. Okay, like today's date. Event, reaction or stop date. Okay, if reaction has stopped, then you have to fulfill this date. If the reaction has not still stopped, then you do have to left this column blank. Next is the onset lag time. After, if you are suspecting that after giving this particular drug, this ADR happens, then what is the time duration between giving the drug and happening of that ADR? Okay, this is called as a temporal relationship. If the ADR is happening immediately after giving the drug, then there are most chances that this is because of the drug. That's why after how much period the ADR happens after giving the drug should be written in the this onset lag time, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever. Then the next is a describe the event or reaction with treatment details if any. Here you have to describe the reaction, that patient suffered from itching after giving the injection or tablet this. Then we have given the tablet or cetirizine or injection Avil for the this reaction, and after that the reaction subsided, whatever. All these details have to be filled in detail in this column, and this is very important one. Okay, after that there are certain columns like registration number or OPD case number, which you can put here. AMC report number, this need not to be filled by the reporter. This is to be filled by AMC or ADR monitoring center, just like pharmacology department. Okay, so this should be left blank. Worldwide unique number is also left blank. Yes, relevant test or laboratory data with dates. If there are certain relevant laboratory tests related to this ADR, they can be put here along with the dates. Relevant medical or medication history like allergies or any type of the pregnancy, smoking, alcohol history, or hepatic or renal dysfunction or past surgery, that may be put here. Okay, otherwise you can just put nil here if there are no associated conditions. 14th is what is the seriousness of the reaction. If it is not serious, you can put tick on a no. If it is serious, you have to put on a yes. Now, what is the serious reaction? When you are going to classify that as a serious reaction, then there are the certain examples like a death. If the death of the patient is there, that is obviously serious. Life threatening like anaphylactic shock type of reaction. Hospitalization is required or prolongation of hospitalization in case of already admitted hospital because of ADR, then that is labeled as a serious adverse ADR. Congenital anomaly like teratogenicity, any disability because of the ADR, then that is a serious, or any others, then you have to specify that. And 15 is the outcome. What is the outcome of this ADR? Whether the patient recovered completely, then you have to tick on a recovered. Recovering, the patient is recovering but not yet totally recovered, then you have to tick on recovering. Not recovered, okay, then you have to tick on this. Fatal, जो पहले था उससे और वर्स हो गया, so fatal. Recovered but with sequelae, recovered हो गया लेकिन कुछ sequelae या कुछ deformities बाकी रह गए. And unknown, so you have to tick on an appropriate box. Then the next is a suspected medication where there are 4 drugs you can write. So when you are not aware that which particular drug has caused this ADR, might be there are n number of drugs going on in a patient and you are not sure because of which drug this particular rash has happened, then you should put the name of the first suspicious drug in the first, and then second, third, fourth drug. Okay, so name of the drug should be put here, either the brand name or generic name, whichever is available. Manufacturer, the name of the company of that drug manufacturer. Batch number. Why the batch number is important? If it happens sometimes that particular batch is responsible, is faulty, and because of that particular ADR is happening, and the another batch which is absolutely normal, there is no ADR. That's why a batch number should be written. If there are particular incidences that particular batch is causing this ADR, then a DCGI has an authority to withdraw that particular batch from the market or to recall that particular batch by telling to that particular pharmaceutical or manufacturing company. Okay, expiry date should be put on this. Dose use, route use, frequency use. Okay, therapy dates, date started of the therapy, date stop of the therapy. If the therapy is not stopped, then you don't have to put any date here. Indication for what purpose you have given this particular drug, and then causality assessment. This column should be left blank. It is a responsibility of the ADR monitoring center. What should they write in the causality assessment? There is a one scale, WHO scale, and the another is a Naranjo scale. So we will learn the WHO scale in the coming slide. Then what is the action taken for this particular ADR? Then you have to tick appropriate option. Drug withdrawn, अगर drug आपने withdraw कर लिया, stop कर दिया, discontinue कर दिया, वहाँ पे tick करो. Dose increase किया, उसको tick करो. बहुत rarely है कि dose आप increase कर रहे हो ADR के बाद. Dose reduce, आपने dose stop नहीं किया, सिर्फ dose reduce किया, यहाँ पे tick करो. Dose not change, वैसे ही रहने दिया, वो यहाँ पे tick करो. Not applicable, इनमें से कुछ भी नहीं है, उसको tick करो. और unknown, if you don't have miss patient suppose आपके पास वो टेलीफोनी के लिए बताया और आपको कुछ किया नहीं है, तो आपको पता नहीं, तो unknown. नेक्स्ट कॉलम इज अ रिएक्शन रीअपियर्ड आफ्टर द रीइंट्रोडक्शन. ओके, अगर आप ड्रग विड्रॉ करते हो तो उसको बोलते हैं फार्माकोविजिलेंस के लैंग्वेज में डी चैलेंज. अगर आप ड्रग वापस से देते हो तो उसको बोलते हैं री चैलेंज. ओके, सो री चैलेंज मीन्स कि एक बार एडीआर हुआ, ड्रग की वजह से हुआ, आपको ऐसा लग रहा है एडीआर स्टॉप हो गया, रिकवर हो गया. वापस से ये देखने के लिए कि ड्रग की वजह से ही हुआ क्या, आपने वापस से ड्रग दिया. That is called reintroduction or re-challenge, and this is very dangerous, especially if the ADR is a serious. That's why it is very rarely performed in the actual setting. Okay, if drug देने के बाद वापस से ADR हुआ है तो उसको S करो, नहीं हुआ है तो नो करो, इफेक्ट आपको पता नहीं तो नो करो. ओके, डोज क्या है अगर आपने री इंट्रोड्यूस किया था तो सेम डोज पे री इंट्रोड्यूस किया जिस ड्रग पे डोज पे एडीआर हुआ था या कुछ अलग है. Next column is a concomitant medical product including the self medication and herbal remedies with therapy dates. Sometimes patient खुद से ही एडीआर होता है तो कुछ खुद से कुछ ले लेता है, वो इस कॉलम में पुट कर सकते हैं. या कुछ हर्बल या आयुर्वेदिक ड्रग ले रहा है तो हमें लगता है कि आयुर्वेदिक ड्रग से नहीं होता साइड इफेक्ट, फिर भी आप इस कॉलम में लिख सकते हो. ओके. एडिशनल इंफॉर्मेशन, पेशेंट को किसी पर्टिकुलर फिजिशियन या किसी पर्टिकुलर स्पेशलिस्ट के पास रेफर किया है क्या, कुछ एडिशनल इंफॉर्मेशन जो इसी किसी कॉलम में आप इंक्लूड नहीं कर पा रहे हो, यू कैन पुट इन दिस कॉलम. ओके. एंड लास्ट इज द रिपोर्टर डिटेल. For the sake of the convenience, when you are writing in your record book, you have to put your details. Okay, name and professional address, pin code, email, telephone number, occupation, and your signature. Okay, date of this report, whenever your practical we are going to conduct on today's date or the for the another batches the another date, so you have to put that particular date. So advice about the reporting. So what to report? So report any serious adverse drug reaction, and we have seen a reaction is serious when there is a death or life threatening or hospitalization, disability or congenital anomaly or required any intervention to prevent the permanent impairment or damage. But apart from serious adverse drug reaction which are classified in this category, any non-serious ADAs should be reported. अगर आपको पता है कि एमोक्सिसिलिन की वजह से डायरिया होता है फिर भी रिपोर्ट करना चाहिए. ओके. आइट्रोपिन की वजह से ड्राई माउथ होता है फिर भी रिपोर्ट करना चाहिए अगर हो रहा है तो, या टैकीकार्डिया होता है, फीवर होता है. ओके, ताकि हमारे पास अपना एक डाटाबेस जनरेट हो इंडिया का. नोन और अननोन, आपको पता है कि ये रिएक्शन होने वाला था तो भी रिपोर्ट करो, ये रिएक्शन अननोन है तो भी रिपोर्ट करो, फ्रीक्वेंट है या रेयर है फिर भी रिपोर्ट करो. सो द डिक्टम इज दैट रिपोर्ट एनी एडीआर. इट मे बी बिकॉज ऑफ मेडिसिन और द ड्रग, इट मे बी बिकॉज ऑफ वैक्सीन, जैसे कि कोरोना वैक्सीन लिए जा रहे हैं, कोविशील्ड को वैक्सीन, उसके बाद एडीआर हो रहा है, बहुत लोगों को हो रहा है माइल्ड टाइप में एडीआर, वो भी रिपोर्ट होने चाहिए. हर्बल प्रोडक्ट्स की वजह से हो रहा है तो भी रिपोर्ट होने चाहिए. और मेडिकल डिवाइसेस लाइक द सिटी स्कैन मशीन, एमआरआई, यूएसजी और एनी अदर machine may be responsible, and this particular branch of pharmacovigilance is called materiovigilance when the ADAS is because of medical devices. One thing I tend to forgot in here writing, the ADAS due to the blood products transfusion, that is called hemovigilance. Okay, so all this should be reported. So what to report, you know this. Now who can report? All healthcare professionals, whether it is a clinician, dentist, pharmacist or nurses, they can report. Apart from that, patient can also report. We have seen that there is a separate form for the reporting of the patient, ADR reporting for consumer or patient. Now where to report? A duly filled suspected adverse drug reaction reporting form can be sent to the nearest adverse drug reaction monitoring center, or in short form AMC, or directly to the National Coordination Center, that is IPC Ghaziabad. आप उसको हार्ड कॉपी में भेज सकते हो. और you can do a call on toll free helpline number 1800180324. Okay, or you can mail to the pvpi@ipcindia.net or pvpi.ipcindia@gmail.com. Okay, and list of nationwide AMC is available on this particular site, so you can see the nearest AMC which is available to you. What happens to the submitted information? क्या होता है? The information provided in this form is handled in the strict confidence. The causality assessment is carried out at AMC, that is Area Monitoring Center, जैसे कि हमारा सेंटर है, by using WHO UMC scale. Okay, UMC means Uppsala Monitoring Center, which is a global center located in the Sweden for pharmacovigilance. Now after this, the analyzed form are forwarded to the National Coordination Center IPC Ghaziabad through the ADR database, that is a VisiFlow. Finally, the data is analyzed and forwarded to the global pharmacovigilance database managed by WHO Uppsala Monitoring Center in the Sweden. Now the reports are periodically reviewed by NCC PVPI, and the information generated on the basis of these reports helps in the continuous assessment of the benefit risk ratio of the medicine. कोई मेडिसिन दिया जा रहा है तो बेनिफिट है क्या इसका, कंटिन्यूसली ये असेस किया जाता है. ओके, सिग्नल कुछ जनरेट हो रहा है क्या, पर्टिकुलर ड्रग की वजह से पर्टिकुलर एडीआर वापस आ रहा है क्या, वो असेस किया जाता है पीरियडिकली एनसीसी पीवीपीआई पे. ओके, this information which is gathered is submitted by the steering committee of the PVPI to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare MOHFW, and the committee is entrusted with responsibility to review the data and suggest any interventions that may be required, like withdrawal of the drug or the ban of the drug or putting the warning or precautions over the label of the drug. Now causality assessment, this is very not to me relevant at a UG level, but for causality assessment there are certain scales like Naranjo scales and WHO scale. Okay, the Naranjo scale or Naranjo algorithm is a Naranjo probability scale which is useful for causality assessment. This uses the questionnaire, okay, और पर्टिकुलर क्वेश्चनर को पर्टिकुलर मार्क है, अगर इसमें स्कोर मोर देन 9 आता है तो डिफाइनेट एडीआर मीन्स ये ड्रग की वजह से ही एडीआर हुआ है, ये डेफिनेट है। 5 to 8 के बीच में अगर स्कोर रहता है तो ये प्रोबेबल है, 1 to 4 के बीच में रहता है तो ये पॉसिबल है, और 0 है तो डाउटफुल है। So there are 4 categories of the doubtful, possible, probable or definite by the causality assessment as per the Naranjo scale. According to the WHO scale, which we are using during this pharmacovigilance program of India, which is more relevant to you, there are the categories like certain, कि ड्रग की वजह से चांसेस होने के चांसेस बहुत ज्यादा है तो सर्टन, प्रोबेबल तो यहाँ पे पॉसिबिलिटी थोड़ी कम हो गई है, देन पॉसिबल, अनलाइकली, अनक्लासिफाइड एंड अनक्लासिफाइबल। ओके, दिस इज अ WHO स्केल, तो आप देख सकते हो यहाँ पे सर्टन, प्रोबेबल, पॉसिबल, अनलाइकली, अनक्लासिफाइड और कंडीशनल एंड अनक्लासिफाइबल। तो यहाँ पे दिया है कि कब एडीआर को सर्टन बोलना चाहिए, प्रोबेबल बोलना चाहिए, पॉसिबल बोलना चाहिए, ओके, और अनलाइकली बोलना चाहिए। जनरली ये 4 टाइप के आपके पास आते हैं जब भी आपके पास एडीआर आता है तो। Now the exercise, there are 2 exercises which are given in your record book, so you have to fulfill that the 2 ADR form in your annexer, as an annexer in your record book. You may have to do the printout. I will forward the PDF to the group and you have to take the printout. You may attach as an annexer or you can directly fulfill the information in your journals. So first exercise, a 10-year-old boy weighing 30 kg was prescribed with tablet amoxicillin 250 mg TDS for a period of 5 days for acute tonsillitis. ओके, एमोक्सिसिलिन दिया है 250 मिलीग्राम दिन में 3 बार 5 डेज के लिए एक्यूट टॉन्सिलाइटिस के लिए। उसका वेट 30 kg है, उसका एज 10 ईयर है। The boy started having itching and maculopapular rash all over the body within 1 hour of taking the first dose of amoxicillin. एमोक्सिसिलिन लेने के बाद उसको एडीआर हुआ, क्या हुआ, इचिंग हुआ और मैकुलोपैपुलर रैश हुआ, वो 1 घंटे के अंदर। He was brought to the doctor and doctor gave him tablet cetirizine 10 मिलीग्राम। अभी इचिंग कंट्रोल करने के लिए उसको एंटीहिस्टामिनिक टैबलेट दिया गया सेट्रिजिन 10 मिलीग्राम। सेट्रिजिन लेने के बाद द इचिंग एंड रैश ग्रेजुअली रिलीव्ड आफ्टर द 2 आवर्स, मींस टोटली रिकवर हो गया पेशेंट उस पर्टिकुलर एडीआर से। अभी इस पर्टिकुलर इंफॉर्मेशन से आपको एडीआर रिपोर्टिंग फॉर्म में फिलअप करना है। सो विल सी हाउ। So this is a certain columns which I have filled for you. Okay, here for the first patient information, पेशेंट का नाम पता नहीं बॉय का, इसलिए मैंने ABC लिख दिया, आपको भी वही लिखना है। एज ऑफ द बॉय इज अ 10 years, तो मैंने एज लिख दिया यहाँ पे। मेल या फीमेल, तो आपको मेल को टिक करना है यहाँ पे। ओके, वेट कितना है, तो 30 kg है, तो आपको 30 kg लिखना है। सेकंड इज सस्पेक्टेड एडवर्स रिएक्शन, यहाँ पे जिस दिन भी आपका प्रैक्टिकल है उस दिन की डेट डालनी, क्योंकि आपके पास रिएक्शन की डेट नहीं दी है यहाँ पे। तो इवेंट और रिएक्शन स्टार्ट डेट 24/5/2021, इवेंट और रिएक्शन स्टॉप डेट उसी दिन स्टॉप भी हो गया क्योंकि 2 घंटे के अंदर स्टॉप हो गया, तो हमने डाला है कि उसी दिन स्टॉप भी हो गया 24/5 को। देन वी हैव पुट द ऑनसेट लैग टाइम, कितने देर के बाद हुआ रैश और रीचिंग आफ्टर गिविंग द एमोक्सिसिलिन, तो 1 आवर, तो यहाँ पे 1 आवर लिया है। यहाँ पे डिस्क्राइब करना है रिएक्शन को, तो लिखा है बॉय डेवलप इचिंग एंड मैकुलोपैपुलर रैश ऑल ओवर द बॉडी विद इन 1 आवर of taking the first dose of amoxicillin. Itching and rash gradually relieved after 2 hours of taking the tablet cetirizine 10 mg. कोई रिलेवेंट लैबोरेटरी टेस्ट नहीं है इसलिए नील लिखा है। मेडिकल हिस्ट्री नहीं है कोई एलर्जी की, इसलिए नील लिखा है। सीरियसनेस नहीं है इसलिए यहाँ पे नो को टिक करना है। आउटकम क्या है, रिकवर, तो यहाँ पे रिकवर को टिक करना है। सस्पेक्टेड मेडिकेशन क्या है, तो नेम आपने लिखना है टैबलेट एमोक्सिसिलिन। मैन्युफैक्चरर और बैच नंबर और एक्सपायरी डेट आपके पास नहीं है। डोज आपके पास है 250 मिलीग्राम। रूट है ऑब्वियसली ओरल, कितने दिन फ्रीक्वेंसी है TDS, रिएक्शन की स्टॉप डेट आपके सॉरी थेरेपी की स्टार्ट डेट है 24, लेकिन थेरेपी स्टॉप किया है क्या, डिसकंटिन्यू किया है क्या, विदड्रॉ किया है क्या, कुछ भी आपको पता नहीं है, तो उसको कुछ भी नहीं लिखना है डेट स्टॉप में। इंडिकेशन में लिखना है एक्यूट टॉन्सिलाइटिस, और कॉजेलिटी असेसमेंट में आपको ब्लैंक रखना है। लेकिन मैंने यहाँ पे इसलिए लिखा है कि ये रिएक्शन एज पर द फार्माकोजेनेस सर्टन या प्रोबेबल में जाती है। ओके, जो हमने WHO स्केल में लिखा। एक्शन टेकन क्या है यहाँ पे आपको पता नहीं, इसलिए अननोन पे टिक करना है। यहाँ पे कुछ भी नहीं लिखना है री इंट्रोडक्शन में, क्योंकि आपने वापस से री इंट्रोड्यूस नहीं किया ड्रग। सेफ मेडिकेशन में आपको कुछ भी नहीं लिखना है। एडिशनल इंफॉर्मेशन में कोई जरूरत नहीं है यहाँ पे लिखने की। रिपोर्टेड डिटेल में आपको अपना खुद का नाम एंड ऑल डिटेल्स आपको फिलअप करनी है। ओके, सो दिस इज लाइक यू कैन पुट द टिक्स हियर and the exercise 2. Okay, here Mr. Mohan is suffering from grand mal epilepsy. Okay, generalized tonic clonic seizure का ही दूसरा नाम है grand mal epilepsy. The patient is treated with tablet phenytoin sodium 100 mg TDS. As his attacks were not controlled, doctor increased the dose to 200 mg TDS. मीन्स उसको पहले phenytoin दिया गया 100 mg TDS, लेकिन अगर कंट्रोल नहीं हो रहा था सीजर, इसलिए उसको 200 mg TDS दिया गया। मीन्स कितना डोज आया 600 mg। उसकी वजह से क्या हो गया, मिस्टर मोहन स्टार्टेड गेटिंग निस्टैग्मस एंड गेडीनेस, मोस्ट प्रोबेबली बिकॉज ऑफ द सेरेबुलर एंड द वेस्टिबुलर टॉक्सिसिटी ऑफ द phenytoin. द डॉक्टर रिड्यूस द डोज ऑफ phenytoin एंड सिम्टम्स वेर रिलीव। तो डोज रिड्यूस कर दिया और पेशेंट रिकवर हो गया। अब इसी बेसिस पे आपको फॉर्म में फिल करना है, एडीआर रिपोर्टिंग फॉर्म में डाटा। तो दिस एक्सरसाइज यू हैव टू डन ऑन योर ओन, जस्ट लाइक वी हैव डन द फॉर द एक्सरसाइज 1. Okay, and you have to check your forms once you come back to the college after returning to the college. Okay, so this is all about this lecture. So your 5 minutes can help us to ensure the safer medication. So whenever you are going in a ward or wherever you are seeing some ADR, you should report. In our wards we have keep the ADR reporting form in every ward, so you can take the ADR reporting from the ward in charge and you can fill. So this is our moral and ethical duty under the pharmacovigilance. So thank you for your patience listening. This is all about the ADR reporting pharmacovigilance, and the answers which should be you have to write in your record book of the various exercises. Thank you once again.